episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I am one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford, and we are joined with a special guest today, Shelley Loving. Now, Angela, you and Shelley met at an NSA conference, meetup thing. We've had a couple of people who are from the National Speakers Association, not the NSA, like the, people who listen in on your phone calls when you don't know, different NSA. But wanted to give you guys a chance to share how you met, and Shelley, introduce yourself as well. Angela, you
Yes.
decide. You want to go first, or do you
I
want Shelley to introduce
say
herself?
NSA, the speakers, not the listeners. That's my nerdy NSA joke. So I went to my very first. We have a monthly meeting. We're both part of the National Speaker Association Dallas chapter, and it's number 1 or number 2 in the nation. If I keep bragging about that, sorry, you should all join. Anyway, and so, but I'm virtual because it's 5 hours to Dallas. But as it turned out in March, I was able to spend a few extra dollars and a little logistics, and I could fly into Dallas on my way to Houston where I was speaking. And so it was my first meeting. I know y'all are crazy thinking I might have been calm and cool and collected, or no, I was super excited, even though I had 4 hours sleep. And so I look around the room, and Shelley was standing at a table. These were all round tables. And I only say that to say, when I saw her standing, kind of looking around, it felt welcoming and open to me. And so there were other people that were sitting at tables that were there early. And I, from way across the room, opposite side of the room, I walked over to her to say, "Hi, I love networking, and you look like you might also like networking." So number 1, she was by herself. And number 2, she was standing looking open instead of huddled at the thing. So we've had a podcast where we talk about, how to make friends. And we could probably do a podcast on how to network better. But just her stance in the room made it very easy for me. And I know y'all don't think that this is weird for me, but I actually am just like a normal human. I get nervous meeting people too. So my trick to that is always go find the one person that's by themselves. And then we're both of us are not by ourselves. So anyway, Shelley, thanks for being open. And I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me. By the way, I drove an hour and 10 minutes for that meeting, so I was not going to be sitting down when I could meet new people and make new connections and make new friends. So I was really happy when you came over. I was bummed when you told me you lived in Arkansas, but it's okay. We just have to be more diligent about actually getting together, because I love your energy. I love what you're doing, and I'm really happy that you came over to me that day. So thanks. My name is Shelley Loving, and I'm a nutrition chef, which kind of sounds weird. I don't own a restaurant or anything. I just help people with their own journey in the kitchen. So my whole goal is to help people lower the chronic inflammation in their body through changing up some of the foods that they're eating. I try to make it doable, relatable, fun, time-saving, money-saving. It's a lot. And after my husband almost died from a heart attack, and we changed what we were eating and we healed him, I just feel like it's my duty and my mission and my passion to pay it forward now and to show people that food really does have a lot of power and it directly affects your health. And I just want to help as many people as I can just open their eyes to nutrition and the power behind it without it being overwhelming and complicated. That's what I do. And that's who I am.
My gosh. There is so much about that I love. Number 1, you did not mention weight at all, which is fantastic. We have had an episode on
intuitive eating.
Thank you. We have had an episode on intuitive eating, and we talked a lot about weight as a paradigm, but I love you're talking about inflammation. Tell us a little bit more about why that is a more critical metric that we should be paying attention to.
I feel like I want to approach people in a way where they feel like something is doable. There's millions of people that talk about weight loss. There's millions of people that talk about prescription drugs, and they talk about chronic conditions specifically. When my passion is really getting to the root issue. A lot of people don't even know what chronic inflammation is. Do you want me just to 30 seconds explain what that? Okay.
Please.
So there's two types of inflammation in our body. There's acute inflammation, which is the good kind. That's when we break our wrist and it swells up, or we cut our finger and it turns red. That's our body going to the source and protecting it. That's acute inflammation. We love that kind.
It's cute. We love
It's cute.
Your ankle might be the size of Nebraska, but it's cute. So then there is chronic inflammation, which is what a lot of people don't understand. It's silent, it's invisible. So it's going on inside our body. Everyone has it. Everybody has chronic inflammation. So what happens is our body, it's our flight or fight mode. It's when our body either has a foreign object in it, is inundated with chemicals that shouldn't be there. There's a health issue going on, stress, lack of sleep. All of these things cause chronic inflammation in our body. Well, our body is only capable of either fighting the chronic inflammation and trying to get it out of our body, or fighting things that come along. Disease, virus, sickness, illness, chronic conditions, all of those things. It can't fight both. So if our body is spending all its energy fighting the chronic inflammation, how in the world is our body going to help protect us and keep us well as well? So our body starts breaking down when we are constantly inflamed on the inside, and it raises a metaphoric white flag and it says, Shelley, help me out. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting this chronic inflammation. You're not helping me. You're adding to the problem, and it starts breaking down. Our cells get weak, and then that's when our body is susceptible to everything from allergies to cancer. So my job and my passion is teaching people and educating people on how they can reduce that chronic inflammation in their body to set a solid foundation for healing and wellness.
Wow.
Basically.
In a nutshell.
No,
whatever. You know, like, yeah, you know, if you're hurting all the time and have everything from allergies to, cancer, no big deal. I just help with all that. I love it. That's hilarious. We got
to the root issue. We got to get down to the root. We don't need to be putting Band-Aids on all of our health issues, whether they're big or small. Quit taking the allergy medicine and quit taking all the prescription drugs as your only solution. When if you can reduce that inflammation in your body, you're setting your body to be strong. You're setting your body up to fight, defend, and protect. So that's,
I love that.
I want to teach people to get down to those basic levels, not on this high level of a bunch of Band-Aids.
I know. I'm sitting here going like, my little ADD brain is spiderwebbing with questions. So I'm gonna let Sami ask a question first.
Okay. No pressure.
I was like, Angela, you go first.
Oh, okay. So I want to talk about, and you probably talk about lots of them, but I get to pick because it's my podcast. So I want to talk about one that that's funny. Sorry. I am in an obnoxious mood today. I apologize. One of the things that I have come to recognize over the last few years is a major source of inflammation, and this very #unpopular discussion is sugar. Is that one of the talk about how, and I just want to keep it, just to start with, keep it narrow because there's lots of things that cause inflammation, right? But starting with sugar, talk about that and how it inflames our body.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody knows sugar is not good for us. We all know this. This is not new information. And it doesn't just cause diabetes. It causes chronic inflammation in our body, which also hosts all kinds of health issues long-term.
Well, wait a second.
Go ahead.
So sorry. You're saying, sugar's not good for you. I don't know that it's true that people know why it's not good for them. They probably only think. That's why I want you to really talk about this because I think this idea of inflammation, I think there's a subset of people that are like, oh yes, obviously I know this. They're like 10%, 20% of the population, but the rest of us, tell me how it causes. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. It just spikes our blood sugar, and then we go into insulin resistance over time, and our body just can't handle those spikes and those peaks in sugar highs and sugar lows, sugar high and sugar low. But it's not just about eating a cupcake. People are they don't understand that sugar is in everything we're buying at the grocery store. Sugar is actually a preservative, so it gives processed food, longer shelf lives. So Think marinara sauce. Think salty crackers. They have sugar in them because it's a preservative and it's a very addicting food. So they want you to get addicted to the food and they want it to have a long shelf life. So we're not talking just about did you eat a piece of cake at your birthday party? We're talking, or did you eat a Snicker? We're talking what's in the food that you're buying at the grocery store, even the ones that aren't even sweet. They're putting sugar in everything. They're putting
Who's
sugar in
that?
dairy products. The people who are making the food. Big, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I know, but I want to be clear. I want us to get clear on our pronouns.
So,
Big manufacturing companies.
Ah, you're right.
okay. Well,
The
so
for-profit,
sugar.
for sickness food companies.
Ouch.
We're swinging for the fences today, and I'm here for it.
I'm not naming any.
When we say that sugar is in everything, and sugar's not good for us, I, in my season of life as a mom of two toddlers and busy person, I'm like, okay, well, that sounds like huge problem that I'm never really going to be able to address. So what's the point trying? That's my brain's like default, like, oh my gosh, that sounds so much. So I don't think I can actually handle any of it.
Totally.
What could I do?
Yeah. So I believe, let me be crystal clear because this is a very large pillar that I stand on. It is all about the balance. We've got to have our balances. And I do think that there is this glorious place that we can have both. And I try to encourage people to think about the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, so Tuesday at lunch, Thursday at breakfast, in the carpool line, what are you snacking on? What are you eating? Are you being intentional? Are you getting the nutrients? Are you getting the vitamins? Are you eating the lean protein? 80% of the time, put focus on it. Put focus on it with your kids, right? 20% of the time, we're at soccer practice and we be busy. We are on vacation. We're taking a road trip. It's a holiday. It's my son's birthday. Those are the 20%. Enjoy the food that you love. It's okay. But if we put at least, I will even give you 70% of focus on nutrition. So we're feeding the body well and we're not giving them cereal in the morning and we're not giving them frozen pancakes in the morning because that's the food you're giving them to do brain work all day at school. Like that's, let's get away from that and then enjoy the 30% on the special occasions, the traveling, the time off, all of that stuff. So I don't want moms or parents to get stressed out with this idea that it has to be all or nothing or that has to be no sugar because I love sweet things and I do sweet recipes and I believe in all the sweet in the fruit and I am for all of that. It's the white refined sugar, the high fructose corn syrup, the corn syrup that we really need to be leery of.
I think that makes sense. And I even think, I love how you said 80% and you're like, you know what, I'll even give you 70% because I feel like if the difference is 0% effort or 50% effort or 20% effort, you know what? Put in the effort, put in some
Yes,
effort, even if it's not perfect, because it will make a difference.
it does.
Doing a little bit and within my own journey in nutrition and different things, I have found that I can't take it all on at the same time. Adding in, basically I add in a new skill, and once I get good at that new skill, then I can kind of go a little bit deeper. And so I spent like a month focusing on my protein intake and like, okay, great. Let's be mindful. Where's my protein? Where am I getting this every day? How am I doing this? I know I also need fiber. I know I also need these other things. And I can't, it's too much of a math equation that I feel like I'm always running of like, where is this coming from? So once protein became a little bit more natural, okay, great. What's next? What's my next thing that I'm going to add in on top of that? And I think that has made a big difference, at least for me.
You're,
And I would assume that this is part of the overwhelm is you can't do it all at once, and that's okay.
mm-mm. No, you're speaking my language. I feel like you've been in like stalking me on social for the last, well, in 2024, because that is my sole focus. I teach a masterclass called Healthy Habits Unleashed. And that is exactly what we talk about in my 3-day masterclass. How do we make the small changes become habits? What is a habit? It takes 66 days to create a habit. Do one thing at a time, whatever that is for you. Maybe you just focus on your water intake. That's huge. Just doing that alone can reduce chronic inflammation and give you energy and clear up your skin and get rid of the headaches and all of that stuff. So I feel like you just were, the words that you were saying literally have been coming out of my mouth for the last 4 months. So yes, I 100% agree with baby steps create very large sustainable habits.
Well,
Okay. Oh, go ahead. No,
Angela, I
you
know
keep going on
this sort of
habits.
goes with this idea of, we've talked about before, when you're steering a ship and you make a 1 degree change in where you're going to go, you turn the ship 1 degree. Right now, you may not notice a huge difference, but 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, that 1 degree shift will make a huge difference within your life. And so I just feel like there's so much right now that feels all or nothing, that feels like, well, what's the point? And, the world's going to catch on fire and everything's going to explode. So why should I bother? I mean, no, it's little steps will make a difference over time. And I don't know. This year I turned 30, and I feel like the biggest lesson I'm learning is consistency is what matters. It's actually not anything else. People who are successful, people who have healthy lifestyles, all of these things, the common thread is being consistent and just continuing to try and not giving up on it. So I love this. I love the building a habit, make it a baby step. It's beautiful.
On the note of consistency, I would say the consistency used to scare me a lot because I would be like, "Oh, I have ADD. I'm not consistent." And the kind of quote that comes up for me when I think about it is the idea, I think it's a Chinese proverb that says fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. So even in your trek of consistency and trajectory, it's I think I had to, in my own mind, like what you started with the 1% change, I had to think about it, what is the trajectory? What am I known for? What is my kind of mode of operating? And this is sort of the mode that I try to operate in. And anyway, for those of you, I know we have a lot of ADD listeners. You kind of have to be. Anyway, and so just don't be afraid to say consistency doesn't mean 100% perfection. Consistency is very different than perfection. And so I just want to make sure we hear that is like it's the practice and getting good at, and then practice and getting good at, and practice and getting good at. It's not 100% perfection. Anyway,
I tell
thank you.
people that your relationship with food is the longest relationship you'll ever have. You can't break up, you can't divorce, you can't quit. Every day when you wake up, there it is. So instead of being stressed about it and being overwhelmed about it, just be consistent about it every day that you think it's a new day. Because yesterday, if I ate 4 cupcakes, it's all right. Today's a new day, and that relationship's still here. It's not going anywhere. So I might as well just have a fresh outlook every single day and take those small, consistent steps to create some healthier habits every day.
I love that, especially because we've supported folks through lots of different addiction journeys. And I've have some chips from some things that I had to give up and kind of overcome. And I remember when you said that to me the first time, you can't break up with food. And I was like, oh man, like it's an obvious, and it's a duh, but sometimes those big does are like, oh wow, I can't pick up a 30-day chip that I didn't eat food because you wouldn't be here. Right. And
Exactly.
so, so I absolutely love that. And then if you think about it, this relates a lot to, we have a podcast from January 24 that talks about our relationship with ourselves. And I have said that is the longest relationship you have, but you're right. I think food is even before we have a conscious mind and ability to have a relationship with ourselves, and they kind of factor into each other.
We do.
And the relationship with ourselves impacts our relationship to food. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah. Oh, most definitely. They're intertwined. Like, I
Mhm.
don't want to sound like, oh, it's obvious, but it is. Like, we
Mm.
have to, there has to be self love and self respect and self worth, um, when to be able to want a healthier version of yourself, the healthiest version of yourself, right? That is self-love. Because I don't know about y'all, but while I'm here on this beautiful earth, I want to feel good. And to feel good
Mhm.
comes with loving yourself and feeding yourself the smart things, right? So I feel
Mm.
like, Angela, they go hand in hand without, I mean, even without saying it. Like, in order to have self-respect and self-love, you've got to take care of your physical body.
No, I was gonna say, even though some things that are obvious, I think we have to say them out loud, because there's sometimes where, like, even you saying it's the longest relationship, like, it just made me think about it a little bit differently. And I know that when I'm in a mode of self-loathing and when I'm in a mode of, like, I don't feel good about myself, it's very challenging to make the healthy choices. And so it's like, the work we do with emotional resiliency and all of that so factors into this. And especially if you're an emotional eater, I would have promised you I was not an emotional eater until I actually got to working out my emotions and then realized, oh, that's those brownies and that bourbon. Oh,
You
okay.
know,
But I didn't feel like an emotional eater before.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of emotional wellness, our brains need to be nourished. There are foods
Hmm.
that we should not be eating that do not nourish our brains, and they cause mental problems. They cause dementia and Alzheimer's. There's so many studies out now that food affects the brain, and the brain is everything for us. So I
Right.
think it's important to see that as well. Now, if you're, going through some hormonal stuff and you're on the couch in a ball and you're crying, let that be your 20%. Okay, honey, it's okay. Have the wine. It's all right. But tomorrow, let's eat some
Try.
vegetables.
One of the things I also feel like it is a cycle where the food can impact your mental well-being, the mental well-being can impact your food. And when the things are happening unconsciously, that feels like where more of the issues might start to come up. But when it is more intentional and when you are aware, I think that's when you can be mindful of 80/20. And that's when you can know that, okay, I'm going to let myself have this moment. And that's not to say that if you're an emotional eater, okay, we'll never eat food because of your emotions again. I remember actually I had a moment pretty recently, it's just a month or two ago. My almost 2-year old had a very significant fall that I still stand. We probably should have gone to the emergency room. My husband said he was fine. I was not fine. He is fine now, but it was really, really difficult for me. And I mean, I think I cried for like 45 minutes because of how traumatic the moment was for me. And I remember afterwards being like, I just want a bowl of ice cream. And I don't think I'm supposed to have a bowl of ice cream. And this is all my body wants right now. I just want to sit in bed and be comforted and just have this bowl of ice cream. And I think I actually called you, mom, and was like, can I have a bowl of ice cream, please? Like, can you give me permission? Because I'm not supposed to eat my emotions, but I'm just so having a rough time right now. And it was one of the first times for me where I, on purpose, leaned into food for comfort as opposed to unintentionally, like I have for a very long time, leaning into food for comfort. And it was such a different experience where I was able to say, I consciously know what I'm doing. I know that I'm not in a good place right now, and I'm going to treat my body with like kid gloves and just a little bit more tenderness. And yeah, I'm going to have the bowl of ice cream, and I'm not going to beat myself up for it, because I think that is the
Good.
spot where I would have eaten the bowl of ice cream, not really thought about it, and then afterwards been like, "Oh, that was a bad decision. You shouldn't have done that, Sammy. Oh, why did you think about that? Why didn't you make a better choice? What are you doing wrong?" And then I've made it worse. Like, I made a decision that's not necessarily the best for my health. And now I'm beating myself up that's making a decision that's not good for my mental health. And I'm just in this horrible cycle. And I think that it's not to say that it's, never okay to eat your feelings, but when you're doing it on purpose, you're doing it on purpose and you are doing it with intentionality. And I think that that can be the difference. And as somebody who struggled with perfectionism, it's just freeing to think about, oh, I don't have to be perfect all the time, and that can still be okay. So that was my experience recently with eating my feelings. And you know what? I'm okay.
I also think you probably you'll eat less of it too. You might have had
I
two
did.
bowls of ice cream if it hadn't been a conscious thing, right? You gave yourself permission, you enjoyed it, and you probably didn't eat near as much.
Yep.
I
I
for
actually didn't even eat a
me
whole entire bowl.
Yeah.
For me, I remember when I was on the health journey I took several years ago, I figured out that my toolbox of comfort was super empty. And so the only thing I had in my toolbox of comfort was food. And I had to figure out, oh, snuggling with my cats feels comfortable and comforts me. I got a really fuzzy blanket and would learn that if I sometimes wanted to sit in a fuzzy blanket and that would comfort me. Sometimes I wanted to like read a book but I wasn't even until I was conscious of that I would just default to that. And I would have argued with you and told you I was not an emotional eater. Well, that's because I didn't like to feel emotions. So of course I don't need emotion. I don't, of course why would I be emotional? Because I don't even like emotions. Like, come on. And so, because quit crying are going to give me something to cry about. Right. And so that for me, I had to like really expand the things that I could offer myself as comfort or offer myself as excitement and energy too, because I found that when I was and I've done some research where like being like wanting spicy foods, like craving spicy foods, I'm like, "Oh, okay, so are you feeling kind of bored? Are you feeling like you need something exciting in your life?" Which is all fine, just being more conscious and finding ways to kind of address those emotions or like nurture myself in those emotions has also been super helpful to me.
I love that. I love that. Just being aware. Just being
Yeah,
aware.
100%. So, Shelley, a minute ago, you were talking about foods that were good for the brain. And, we are all about brain science around here. We are all about talking about how your brain works. So, tell us a little bit about brain foods that are really good for your brain and foods that are maybe not so great for your brain.
Yeah. So people don't think about food and brain health and mental health.
Mm-mm.
And the foods that really nourish the brain, so the brain is made up of fat. So if you think about it, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, back when all the diet foods came out, and the diets and the diet culture and the fat free culture and the low fat culture all began. Well, it was all fine and good back then, but what they didn't realize was they were essentially starving their brains, because we have got to be feeding our brain fat. Our brain needs fat. So, specifically foods that are high in omega 3s. I don't want to get sciencey on you, but I'll keep it very high level. We're talking like avocados, any kind of nuts and seeds, fatty fish like salmon. Those foods go in and they nourish our brain. So, and it's kind of making sense if you can connect the dots. We're not stupid. All the people that were adhering to these low fat, no fat diets for decades, now what's on the rise more than anything? Alzheimer's, dementia, mental health issues. We are in a mental health crisis. And one of the many reasons is we've been starving our brains, and we've been in this low fat, no fat diet culture for so long. So, on the flip side of that, Angela, what I would say is foods that to avoid in the brain health space, my number one food would be artificial sweeteners. Anything that is not real sweetener, like aspartame, sucralose, think Equal, Splenda. Aspartame is in diet sodas, sugar-free gum, sugar-free, no sugar, zero sugar candy and cookies. All of these things are sweetened with artificial sweeteners. Our bodies don't know how to process that. Why? Just because of what it's called. It's artificial, it is fake. It is telling our body, hey, here's something sweet, and then it's giving it 0 calories. So our body is like, wait, you just gave me something sweet. Sweet turns to sugar, turns to calories. I use calories for energy. When you're eating artificial sweeteners, your body's not getting any calories. So your body's chasing the calorie that it's never getting. That's why artificial sweeteners are so addicting. Diet sodas are so addicting, because your body's chasing that 0 calorie that's doing zero good for your body. And your body doesn't know it's fake sugar. So it's still causing diabetes. It's still causing issues, and it's starving our brain and causing a lot of problems long term with our mental situations. So those would be my two: a food that you should nourish your brain with, and then a food that it's not even a food, something that you should be avoiding is artificial sweeteners for sure.
That's super interesting. I definitely feel like I have been reframing having to just sort of rewire my perspective on fat because
Yep.
there is so much in the culture and there's so many messages that all fat is bad. So you're like,
Ugh,
okay. And it's like, but I know this, even this idea of healthy fats, I've heard of people using just that term more, that all fat is not bad and that your body
no,
needs fats, proteins, carbs. Carbs are not all bad. It's this idea of
no.
that artificial and more refined things not always great for you. That doesn't mean that your body
Right.
doesn't need these things. And so
Yep.
I think that that's really great. Angela, did you have any
Yeah, I
thoughts?
just don't believe in all that carb and calorie counting. We need carbs and calories. Like a carb in an avocado is very different than a carb in an Oreo. Like, why are we comparing those two? Like, we need them. We need carbs. We have to have them. So we just have to get
Right.
better at choosing healthy versions of that. Same with fat. Same with fat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I do have questions, but they're, I don't know that that I'm afraid I will start crying on the podcast if you tell me
Oh,
something is
geez.
bad
Well,
for me. So, no, I don't want to ask my question. That's
I'm
uh,
so curious now,
well,
but I'll
so what
keep
are
it
I'm just
moving.
I know. Well, I was just thinking about like what do you do? And so then I was like, so what do we use then for sweeteners and stuff? Because you're saying it's okay to have sweets. And so
yes. So I love maple syrup. I love raw local honey. I love coconut sugar. I put those in my recipes all the time. So instead of like, and it's an easy swap. So if you're on Pinterest and you find a recipe to make a salad dressing and it calls for sugar, put coconut sugar in there, put a little maple syrup in there. That's okay when you're making it from scratch to add a little bit of healthier sweetener. So there's healthier sweeteners. You just avoid that white stuff and the corn syrup in your products that you buy.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to be cynical for a second. Just avoid the easy refined sugar, aspartame, fake sugar, the so and then, you just have to sorry, you do have to work a little bit. However, I will say in my cynicism, you can either work a little bit now or you can take yourself to the doctor 3 times a week or 3 times a month or 6 times or end up in some other situation, like it's an investment. And
It
I
is.
don't want to at all say like, people cause I don't know. It's a very little tightrope for me because it's like, are you saying that somebody caused their own Alzheimer's? No, we're just saying
No.
that as a culture, look at
Yes.
this is what we've done and this
Yeah.
is the outcome that we've gotten. And so begin to make better choices so that our kids are going to have different outcomes and our
Right.
Well, in
grandkids.
the same
So,
way that at one point in time, smoking was said and promoted as something that was good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
especially if you
we
were
now
pregnant.
Yes, I saw
yes,
there's
calm you
advertisements that say
down,
that.
de-stress. Yes.
Yep.
So I think that there's some things as you know better, do better. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to walk up to somebody who is smoking and say, "Well, you know what you did to your whole body." Like,
Right.
yes and no, but that's not a helpful out. It's not a helpful outlook. Maybe that's a conclusion that
Yep.
people can get to. Is that helpful and productive? No, we're going to let that
Yep.
thought float on down the river and keep it going
Yep.
and let that be. Shelley, thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any sort of like last minute thoughts or advice to give to people, maybe starting out on this journey, some kind of encouragement for them? Any wrap up thoughts?
Yeah, I give this advice a lot. I get this question a lot, and I think my very first instinct is always tell people read your food label. That's going to tell you what's in the food. Go to the ingredient list on everything you buy and read it. Know what you're putting in your body. It doesn't have to be complicated. If it's a word you don't recognize, your body's not going to recognize it either. So don't buy it. It's real simple. Recognize the ingredients, know how to read a food label, and that is where you own all the power in your health because you know what you're putting in your body, what you're making in your recipes, and what you're feeding your kids too. Like that's really important. Just read a food label, and that's like a really good place to start. And if people don't know how to read a food label, just follow me on social media, join my newsletter. That's all I talk about is just empowering people to own their food intake, and just know what you're putting in your body.
Well, and in the same way you talked about balance, like when you say read the food labels, I imagine like, oh my gosh, that's so big. But maybe this week you're reading the stuff that is in the main dishes. And then next week you're reading the thing that is in your vegetables. Next week you're reading, so it's not like you have to, although I did actually one time I like scheduled and said, I'm just going to go to the grocery store and I'm not going to be on task mode. I just want to go and I'm just going to wander the aisles and the things that I like, and started reading them. And it was like my little outing that I did. And I only had to do it once. I spent like an hour. I looked ridiculous. Nobody noticed. I'm the only one that thought I looked ridiculous. But now after I did that, then it's easier and I can go quickly. I'm able to scan quickly and figure that out. So anyway, don't get overwhelmed, you guys. Just start small. And where can we find you, Shelley?
Yeah, all the things is Shelley Can Help. So SHELLEY. There's so many ways to spell Shelley. ShelleyCanHelp.com. And every social media platform is the same, at Shelley Can Help.
I love that. Also, you have something very beautiful over your shoulder. Can you tell us about that? If you guys are watching the YouTube, you'll see it. But if you're not, what do you got over your shoulder over there?
That's my baby. That is my labor of love, called a cookbook. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's called What's on Your Fork. You can find it on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And it's all anti-inflammatory meals that are easy, simple, and they happen to be delicious.
Ooh,
yes.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah, you've written a book, it's
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. You guys, I love your energy and I love what you're doing. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to use your platform to spread my message to more people. So I just want to help people get healthier, and I appreciate you allowing me to do that on your podcast.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you guys so much for being here today. It's been wonderful. Shelley, thank you so much. We'll have all of the links in the show notes. And for now, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.